Well, don't clap yet. I haven't done anything.
I've been a public defender for 42 years. I've been the boss up here for about 28 years. My job is to provide lawyers, represent people that are charged with crime and cannot afford counsel, and to hire lawyers to do that for me or for us. Who cares to guess, in the United States of America, people that are charged with crime, what percentage of them hire their own counsel, and what percentage has a public defender? Who cares to guess? Just yell at a number.
50-50.
Yeah, it's 9% higher. 91% of the time, the government's paying for the judge, the court reporter, the clerk, the prosecutor, and the defendant. You got that? 91% of the time. TVs, the newspapers, despite being told this forever, keep using the expression that has no meaning except maybe in Utah or Mississippi or in Russia, court-appointed lawyer. That's made up. The court does not appoint who your lawyer is. The court just decides whether you're indigent or not. You got it? Whether you're poor, and somebody that looks like me decides who your lawyer is. So I think it's fair to say that my skills and my personality have given me a platform to defend the Constitution and defend the poor. Many of these folks are guilty of something. Sometimes they're overcharged, sometimes they're actively charged, sometimes they're guilty of nothing. And it's our job to represent these folks. We got to deal with TV shows that say that only the rich get lawyers. We got to deal with people in jail who call us public pretenders. We got to deal with the fact that the state pays us. It's just the way it is. Unlike medicine, where if you are poor and you don't like your orthopod or your nephrologist or your psychiatrist, I suppose your insurance company will let you get somebody else because you get paid by they get paid by the procedure. Unless, if you're in the United States. If you're poor and you get a public defender, I decide who you get, and that's the end of the story. You don't get to pick from one to the other. One of the reasons we're in this huge health care controversy is that so many Americans don't want to give up choice of physician. Got it? While in Europe and Canada and some other first world places, they gave up choice of physician a long time ago. So here's what I've learned, and I'll start by saying this. I'll tell you what I've learned professionally. Personally, I was born and raised in Chicago. My dad had a great job, kind of a heroic figure. My dad's job, he was a lawyer for the Department of Labor, and his job was to go around the American Midwest and prosecute farmers who refused to pay minimum wage to migrant workers. Got it? They would actually get away. You want to work for me? You want to pick some sugar beets? You want to pick some tomatoes? I got 40 cents an hour. If you don't like it, you're welcome to go back to Jamaica or Mexico or Nicaragua or Indonesia or Brazil or whatever you got. It was also his job to prosecute farmers who required migrant workers' children to select, to pick crops rather than to attend school. Opponents of this said, and you've heard this all your lives, well, they say fair, let the market drive themselves. 6-year-olds and 8-year-olds will learn a lot about work habits if we just have them pick our celery and our carrots. And of course, as you know, one of the reasons that the Republican Party is divided among itself, one of the big problems that they have is the business folks want all this immigrant, semi-legal or illegal labor, right? Because otherwise your carrots are $4 rather than 79 cents. Same way with your grapes and tomatoes. Well, folks that aren't into farming or aren't interested in that, they want to build a couple of walls and make sure of this stuff because they've forgotten where our grandparents and our great-parents, great-grandparents all came from, right? There's nobody that's not an immigrant. You got that? With all apologies to our Native American sisters and brothers, nobody's not an immigrant. Europe, Asia, landmass, whatever. All of our people came from somewhere else. Just the way it is. So my dad got transferred up here when I was 17 years old. Couldn't find housing, couldn't find housing, couldn't find housing. My mom, my brother, my dad, my brother, myself, we lived in the 2 corner rooms of a Willard Munger motel. 3 months. About a big break, I was fortunate enough to go to Denfeld. Graduated from there in 1965, graduated from UMD in 1969. Lucky enough, I've been lucky my whole life. Did not win a Southeast Asian Studies scholarship. Y'all know what that meant, don't you? We got youngsters, any youngsters in this room? They got no idea what that means. Went to school, at least I see 2 people, buddies from Denfeld here in the room. I see Jim Lander, I see George Ballich. So they'll tell you what it means. My brother and I were both here's another expression kids don't know what they mean, but you all know what I mean. My brother and I are both pre-Salk survivors. That means we caught polio before Dr. Salk pretty much changed the world. And it beat polio in 1953. So, professionally being a defender, besides that I should tell you I teach at UMD, I've been a professor there since '75. So, here's what I have learned now that I'm wrapping up, and the 31st of March is my last day of lawyering up. None of this will shock you, but let's talk about it for a while, huh? I've learned that money doesn't matter. Money matters a lot. A lot. One of the things you might ask yourself, what are the things that we're going into a more and more sciencey world? Sciencey world. Money matters. It determines who's in jail and who's out of jail. When you read in the morning paper who's charged with this or who's charged with that, I want you to keep a couple of things in mind. 1, 5 times more paper inch space is devoted to crime than was when I started practicing law. 2, 10 times more 10 o'clock news time is devoted to crime than was. 3, crime continues to decline. You got that? Violent crime's been going down for 20 years. Ever since the inner city crack epidemic concluded, crime's been declining. Number of cops keep going up. Number of people that want to build prisons keep building up. Because, of course, that's jobs, frankly. But don't let anybody tell you that there's a crime wave. There's none. But money matters. Money builds prisons. Money elects legislators. Money unelects legislators. Money decides who bails out. When I said, look about the people that have been charged in the paper, they're all presumed innocent. Sometimes the cases are strong. Sometimes the cases are not strong. A judge has to decide on first appearance. You all know, you've seen those all. So-and-so, you're charged with blah, blah crime. Your next date will be so-and-so. Let's talk about counsel. Can you afford a lawyer? No, I can't. Well, you filled out this form. I find you're indigent. Call 218-733-1027. Mr. Friedman's office will tell you who your lawyer is. That's said around America. That's what it said. Then the judge said something like this. Let's visit about your conditions of release. Where are you from? What's your criminal record? And they got it now because of modern computers. They got the computer record right in front of them. Some probation officer has gotten up at 6 or 7 in the morning, checked out the record, seen how serious the crime is. Maybe they'll say, maybe the judge will say, I'll see you 2 weeks from Tuesday. Maybe the judge will say, I need $10,000 bail or $100,000 bail. So people pre-trial that are in jail, they're not there because they're guilty or kind of guilty. They're in jail because they're poor. Y'all got that? They're in jail pre-trial because they're poor. Because then it's Minnesota. Anybody can bail out if you have enough money. So I'm saying money matters too much. Money matters too much and able to hire expert witnesses in a very scientific world. We had a case in Hennepin County a couple of weeks ago where both sides hired a DNA expert. DNA expert. I hope you're all sitting down. They both charged $26,000 a day. A day. And get it, of course. prepared for how fast technology is moving. We're a couple of years away from no keyboard. I'd like you to think about that. All right? Microsoft changes toys or devices every, couple of months. It's all about planned obsolescence and moving on from one system to another system to another system to another system. The courts are going paperless in a year, year and a half. That means the medical world won't be far away. That means no files. Now, I'm all for this. I think it's wonderful, but here's what I got to say to you. TJ Maxx ripped off. Marshall's ripped off. Target ripped off. Got it? So I'm just saying that technology is a huge deal. In my generation, us baby boomers, most of the people in this room, we are not prepared for the changes. We're just not. Hell, we can't even get enough breakfast on Sunday morning here. So I think we're not ready for the science changes, and we're not ready for the technology changes. DNA has changed everything. We were over 300 people that have been exonerated on death row because of DNA. What about all the cases that DNA could have nothing to do about? DNA isn't going to help you with the rifle shot from 80 yards, right? DNA isn't going to decide what's an accident, what's a homicide, and what's a suicide. But the science is changing so much, so fast, so much more, that in the future, I don't think you'll be able to be a judge, a prosecutor, a defender, or a cop without taking biology and biochemistry and chemistry in college. That's my prediction. You won't be able to do it. Here's what else I've learned. There's too many incarcerated people. America is fourth in the world per 100,000 people. You got that? Fourth in the world. We got China, we got Iran, we got Uganda, and we got us. Fourth in the world. We're locking too many people up. There's too much money in incarceration. The number of people that build prisons make a fortune. The number of people that work in prisons, almost all of them unionized, make a fortune. And if you think I'm kidding, well, every economist of all stripes, the Reagan guys, the Clinton guys, the Obama guys, the Pat Brown guys, the Schwarzenegger guys, they'll all tell you the same thing. 3 strikes and you're out legislation ruined California. It ruined California. Who do you think was the #1 supporter? 3 strikes you're out means if you commit your 3rd felony, you spend life in prison. Who was the #1 supporter of 3 strikes and you're out? Prison unions, prison guard unions, job protection. So the trouble with the 3 strike and you're out device, it's a trick. If somebody committed rape, or rape, armed robbery, rape, or rape, murder, child molestation, of course they should do life in prison. So the issue is, what gets you a strike? There isn't a person in this room that hasn't committed a felony, I'll tell you that right now. Not a person that hasn't committed a felony. Not a person. Who wants to challenge me? Who wants to challenge me? Who wants to challenge me? How many people in this room, including me, got iPods and got all kinds of music they haven't paid for? How many people in this room, when you babysat or when you gave money to your babysitter, didn't report it on April 15th? Everybody. All right? So there's all kinds of things. So what gets you that felony? You understand? Chicken stealing, shoplifting, your 4th driving after revocation. You got it what I'm saying? What gets you that? All right? Let's go back to your high school life. Every person in here knows people in high school who, when they were 17 and 18, had an intimate relationship with somebody that was 15 years old. That's being a predatory reporter for life. Your life is over. 24 months of the day, difference in age. She's under 16. Consent doesn't matter. And by the way, that was passed federally. By one of the worst people in American history, a guy named Strom Thurmond, who was a 19-year-old sophomore at Clemson, impregnated his 13-year-old African-American au pair. There's a funny American word, a French word, au pair. Au pair is French for what Thomas Jefferson did to slave girls. So, other things that are, you're not going to like this, I promise. I apologize for offending somebody. We don't have enough active, involved fathers. I'll learn that. Too many people are just sperm donors and goodbye. All right? And there's too many parts of America where those folks are celebrated. I got 6 kids, I got 7 kids, I got 8 kids, I got 4 kids. No, I'm not supporting anybody, but I certainly, so what? Being a sperm donor is not the same as being a father. You got it? It's not the same, and you got to speak up. It's not racist to say there's not enough fathers that are active in their children's life. It's the truth. There's not enough fathers, and I apologize. I know I'll offend somebody in this room, but here's the way life is. There's too many damn guns out there. There's just too many guns. And there's entirely too many handguns out there. Entirely. I'm all for folks that want to hunt. You want a bird hunt? God bless you. You want a deer hunt and eat the meat? Wonderful. But what does that have to do with having that handgun under your pillow or under the bed or in your drawer or unlocked up so your 6-year-old can play with it? There's too many guns, and there's too many guns in the hands of mentally ill people. There just are. Now, I don't pretend to know the answer. I know this. But I'll tell you how my hardworking secretaries are not afraid of criminals, violent folks who walk into the office answering questions. They're afraid of the mentally ill folks. With me? It's just the way it is. Next, it seems like everybody has influence out there except children. Target's got a lobbyist, Best Buy's got a lobbyist, Chamber of Commerce has a lobbyist, the unions have a lobbyist, the teachers have a lobbyist, the churches have a lobbyist, everybody, Radisson's got a lobbyist, everybody's got, I got a lobbyist, and churches have a lobbyist, cops got a lobbyist, everybody has a lobbyist except children. So when they say kids first, that's BS. It means kids last. Come to the legislature, any state. It's full of people with $800 Italian suits, $300 Brazilian shoes, and they're representing everybody except children. And if you think I'm BSing, right now, go to East tomorrow morning, or Denfeld. There are 46 people in the physics classes at Denfeld and East. 46 students. 46. Not 36, not 26, 46. Who's speaking up for that? Who's saying this is nonsense? They just don't have enough influence. Whether it's activities, whether it's classes, and every time we cut some 3 o'clock activity, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's hockey, whether it's, I don't care what it is, you're hurting kids. Most people's first crime is 3 to 6 in the afternoon. By far, the most common time for people's first sexual intercourse is afternoon of school days. You all know why. Nobody's home, and there's no activities. As Professor Dr. James Bryan Conant, a longtime former president of Harvard, said, 8 to 3 is not enough. It's not enough. You have to have your kids involved in other stuff. Next, where you attend kindergarten to 12 has an unimaginable effect on what happens to you. It's too big an advantage and too large a disadvantage where you went to school. I'm Chicago native, and I can tell you, you could take the bus or the train between some of the worst high schools in America and some of the very best. You got it? We're talking a couple of miles apart. And that's true in every big city. It's true in Los Angeles, it's true in St. Louis, it's true in New York, it's true everywhere. It's true in London, it's true everywhere. Where you go, K to 12 has too large an effect. Now, Governor Perkins had this great idea where he says let people go wherever they want to go. but of course, transportation's on their own. It's too big a difference. We got public high schools in this state with 4 languages, and you can take math from 7th grade on. We got public high schools in Minnesota where there is no 4th year math, and there is no physics. Right? It matters too much where you're at. And that's important because I want you to think about all the talent we're pissing away every day. Not only black kids or native kids or brown kids, white kids too. Rural kids, urban kids, we just toss away this talent because we don't get them ready. It seems to me you either have to have strong parents or a strong teacher to succeed. I'm sick and tired of hearing that Abraham Lincoln made it out of a log cabin with an abusive father. It's true, and it's also 150 years ago. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? If your child or your grandchild is going to be successful, you got to get them a working laptop, you got to make sure it's virus free, and it's just the way it is. Imagine you are teaching high school English. Do we have any teachers in here? Imagine you're teaching high school English. So just hear me out, because I read this article right out of a paper in Charlotte, North Carolina. And you assign King Lear. Serious stuff, right? So half your class has access to laptops and half doesn't. So she looked it up. There are right now online 147 critiques, cliff notes of Shakespeare's King Lear. So half got access to that when they're writing their paper, and half don't. So I want you to think of the advantages and disadvantages, all right? Not to mention the problems of, I gave a speech at St. Cloud State to a freshman class. 1,100 people in the class. 1,100 people in the class. How are we going to stop cheating? So if somebody says one of the tests, I'm going to ask them to just make up something. I want you to put on the birth date and death dates of Beethoven, Bach, and Mozart. So some people are guessing, some don't know, and some people have their little iPhones between their knees and wrote triple Q with 1,100 people. So I don't think you understand how fast the technology is changing. Kids who tell us too big an effect. You need a strong parent or you need a strong coach. I believe some kids are going to do fine no matter what. I think some kids really don't have a chance no matter what, and they end up being my clients or having all kinds of medical problems. But we've got so many people on that fence, you know what I mean? That can go either way. And they need that strong parent. They need that strong teacher. They need that strong coach. And since I mentioned coach, here's a shout out to women. We got all these male coaches in America that are working for 30 years, and all these women coaches that are working for 2 years. We got to find a way to get adolescent women more adult female role models. They got to be checking on people. They got to be modeling their lives after more people than Lady Gaga and Britney Spears. They just got it, all right? They have to be told it's okay if you're not skinny, and it's okay if you keep your clothes on, and getting A's is something to be proud of, not embarrassed of. But that requires role models to do this stuff. I'm looking around the room, which is just about practically all white. So here's the deal. Way too many things in America is about race. It's just about race. It's just about race. We're taught to say that criminals, when somebody commits a crime, I know all kinds of people says that as a black person. We had a robbery, two guys did a robbery down here on London Road. Everybody said 2 black guys from Chicago did the robbery. Well, hell, it was 2 white guys from Saginaw. But everybody sues, all right? So, I mean, from Chicago or from St. Louis or from Detroit has kind of been code words, you know what I mean, for those people. Too much has to do with about race. Just talk about it too much. We're encouraged to think of them as being different. We're encouraged to think of them as being afraid. We got a bunch of southern states that say it's okay now if a black person knocks on the door selling a Bible or selling Little League stuff, that it's okay to shoot them in the chest and say I was afraid. It's too much about race. It just is. Which means I want you to think of all the talent that we lose because kids go to bad schools or have bad teachers. Your kids do not have to worry about the color, or your grandchildren, the color of their pants or the color of their shoelaces when they walk to school. All compared to parts of America, kids got to think about the colors of clothes they're wearing. That's not right. So I want you to think about all that talent we're losing. Now I'm going to drive it home. I want you to think of all the talent that's produced in northeastern Minnesota, and because of a lack of certain kinds of jobs, we lose them, and they never come back. We're producing smart people, gifted people, women and men, every year. And they go away, and they go away, and they go away, and we lose them. When the economy went, when the recession hit in 2008, I had to lay off 10 folks. I went from the high 30s in lawyers to the high 20s. So I laid off 10 people. I promised, looked in the mirror and says, I'll never do it again. So that's 10 families I chased out of here. They all got jobs. These are professional folks. You got it? They're all working. They're just working in other parts of America. And we chase away talent all the time. When I said it's all about money, here's what I think you baby boomers don't get. If I hear one more time some baby boomers say, work your way through school, I did, I think I'm going to come up and slap you. You do not know what the hell you're talking about. When Melander and Ballich and I went to school at the University of Minnesota, I looked it up, it was $97.50 a quarter. $97.50 a quarter. I went to the university for 7 years, did well, knew what it was about, knew how to pay attention in class. I got it the first time I read it. Good for me. I never paid $300 a year for school. Never. Now I'll take you up to the bookstore at UMD and I'll show you textbooks that are more than $300. You got that? Textbooks that are more than $300. So, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, man, woman, we've let these kids down. And we got all kinds of people whose school debts are $250,000. You can't get out without UMD's 14 grand right now. All right? So, I want you to think about this. And then you get into housing and dorm, and you got all these companies throwing 18-year-old kids the day after they graduate from high school. Here's your 14 credit card applications. And you can throw it on the plastic and buy the blue jeans you don't need from Penny's or Yonkers or whatever. So they're loan. And then they borrow money for school, and then they're out, and they got no way of paying you back, not to mention the predatory loan rates of the banks. Just telling you how it is. So don't ever say, move some French fries to pay your way through school. I did. Next, kids have no regard for privacy. They get the money. We don't get it. They don't get the privacy. The iPhone, email, whatever, we gave it all up. They gave it all up. That's why you hear people saying the terrorists won. All right? We've lost a lot of our privacy. There was no way before computers that you could look up and see what somebody's SAT score was, or how they were doing in second grade for job applications, or juvenile criminal records, or whatever. Now it's all free. It's all out there. Don't ever say your criminal record goes away when you're 18. You made that up. It's there forever. The whole idea of privacy we just lost. I found the laws be these three things. One, constant tug of war between what the federal government should do and what the state should do and what nobody should do. Two, constant tug of war between the legislature, what they should do, and what the courts should do. People, conservatives, love to use the expression states' rights. States' rights. Where'd that expression come from? Where'd that expression come from? Who knows where that expression came from? Slave owners. Slave owners said, Washington, stay out of the American South. We need to count slaves and say how many representatives we get, but don't tell us how to sell cotton and how to sell tobacco. And the third issue that we've been arguing about in America for 225 years is this. How do we select our judges? Should we appoint them or should we elect them? Great arguments, both sides of this issue, and we can't get it right. The compromise, as you know, by the Constitutional Convention, 1787, was that we'll appoint our federal judges, meaning you better know the president and your 2 senators, and most states elect their state judges. Trouble is, the advantage of appointing federal judges, I don't have to worry about pissing off the electorate. The disadvantage of appointing federal judges, it's who you know, and there's no way of getting rid of it. Advantage electing state judges, the electorate gets to pick who they know. Disadvantage, you don't know any of these people. There's not a person in this room that can stand up and give me the names of all 16 judges in northeastern Minnesota, except Judge Campbell and me.
I forgot.
Yeah, there you go. So you're voting for people you don't even know who they are. And who you know, that's the big problem, don't you think? Most people's first job is who they know. It's not how smart they are, it's not their grades, it's not how they did the test, it's not an interview. Most people's first job is who they know. Somebody I know calls me up and says, I need you, please interview so-and-so. Fred, I know you have an opening, please interview so-and-so. I'll never give somebody a job because they ask me to, but I'll always give them an interview. So who you know is everything. You got what I'm saying? It's everything. So the last thing I want to say before I throw it up with questions is this. I'm very lucky in my job I get to travel. I teach in 4 or 5 other law schools across the country to mid-career lawyers, and I help public defender, and I do a little teaching of judges, and I've been around. I've been taught in about 28 states, and my wife and I just got back from going around the world. So here are the things I've learned. One, about travel. We're really lucky here. We don't have to deal with constant law enforcement and court and bar corruption. All kinds of places, they have to deal with it all the time. We got 2 Philadelphia judges right up the hill here in the federal prison camp. I bet you didn't know that. We got 2 Philadelphia judges right here for taking bribes in DWI cases. All right? In the old days, we had a bunch of Chicago judges for the same thing. It was called Operation Gray War. I was speaking to 300 people in a room in West Virginia. I love the story. Ethics discussion. Lawyers. Top of a ski mountain in summer in West Virginia. Guy raises his hand and says, Fred, I got a question. He said in a drawl. What's that? I says, what's your question? He says, well, I'm representing so-and-so, and he's charged with a serious felony assault. And we're going to trial. I says, what's your question? He says, I know the victim, the alleged victim, has paid $12,000 to the trial judge's campaign fund. I know he has. And I know the judge doesn't have an opponent. In other words, there is no campaign. You got it? And I know he's given his campaign just $12,000. I says, that's terrible. What's your question? I want you to think of his question. Here's his question. How much should I get? It's funny because you're here. What if you were seeking justice there? Now it's not so funny. All right? I've been to Louisiana, and I've heard people say, I heard lawyers say, I'm not fighting for justice, I'm not fighting for my guy. My job is to get along with my sheriff. And of course, in Louisiana, the parish sheriffs are pretty much king. So people talk like that all the time. So it's a big world out there. There's places in America where when cops arrest people, they give them the card of certain bail bondsmen. The bail bondsman bails them out and then gives a kickback to the cop who gave them that card. So we are very, very lucky that we don't have to deal with that. So here's that kind of things where we're not lucky. And I told you I just went around the world. Here's where I went. Paris, Athens, Corinth, Suez Canal, Oman, India, Sri Lanka, that's what you used to call Ceylon, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Tokyo, here. I was in only one country, only one, that everybody does not have cradle-to-grave health care. Only one. That's right, the United States of America. There's nobody in this room whose people comes from a country that haven't solved this 80 years ago. Everybody else says it's just a right. We'll just figure it out. It's just a right. Some places you got to wait a long time. Some places you don't have to wait forever. You know, it just depends. But everybody else has a system. Here, the system's undeniably run by the pharmaceutical companies and insurance companies. Why? Because the worst case since World War II, called Citizens United, the United States Supreme Court says corporations are people and they can write checks to candidates, including, this is important, foreign corporations. Meaning Sony, Kia, Nissan, you all with me? Can write those checks. And they do. And they should. So, remember when I told you about judges' elections? 94% of all judges' elections is determined by what? Who has the most money? Not the nicest hair, not who's the incumbent. That's why you see all the articles in the paper talking about so-and-so's campaign chest or how much money they have. So, healthcare. Next. This young lady's in what grade, please?
Homeschool, first grade.
She would be she's first grade. She is a first grade.
Correct, but we're homeschooling.
Perfect, good for you. Do we have any other kids in here? Homeschool, grade school? I don't care. Good for you. Okay, you people have kids. How many, what do you got? Come on, come on, come on.
He's in 8th grade.
8th grade?
That's great.
9th grade? Okay, listen to me. In Southern Asia, Southeast Asia, Thailand, Malaysia, Japan, Singapore, you with me? 6 days a week, 10.5 months a year. They're kicking our butt. They're kicking our butt. I got a friend who's a professor in Penang, that's in Malaysia. Teaches just what I do. He went undergraduate to St. Cloud State. He went home. He was a chief of police for a town of about $500,000 people. Now he's a professor. Here's what he says. Our kids are learning 4 languages and learning everything, history, literature, math, science. And you guys are screwing around with homecoming queens and pickup rallies. That's a guy from Malaysia talking that way. Sounds pretty smart to me. So I'm just telling you, they're going to kill you. They're going to out-test you. They're going to out-beat you. They're going to out-everything. All right? So we got to jack it up. We got to find a way to jack it up. And the other thing, that's the good news. Here's the bad news that I saw going around in the world. Greece, Eastern Orthodox Catholic. The Greek economy is in ruins. Everybody knows why it's in ruins. The government civil service is too bloated. Too many people work for civil service. People retire at age 50. And they nationalism, in terms of jingoism, nationalism, they fooled themselves and say, please, 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 when we have the 2000 Olympics. And they're still paying for it. Just so you know, since 1960, I'm talking Summer Olympics, not Winter Olympics. Since 1960, 2 nations have made money on the Olympics. Montreal still has a city tax for the Olympics they had in 1976. Okay? Only Tokyo and Atlanta have made money on the Olympics in the last 57 years. So let me talk about religion. They're Eastern Orthodox. Egyptian, of course, Islam. Oman, Islam. India, Hindu. Sri Lanka, Buddhist. Thailand, mostly Buddhist. Malaysia, mostly Islam. And in Singapore, pretty much everything. And here's what I see everywhere. Everywhere. Religious intolerance. Intolerance. So to me, it's less about religion and more about religious intolerance. We're okay, everybody else is screwed. We're going uptown, and if you don't follow the way we believe, you're going downtown. You understand what I'm saying? The only way to salvation is our church, our book, our scripture, and everybody else, you messed up. So I just don't see why people can't say, hey, this is the way I believe. I'm not going to change the way I believe. I hope my children believe the same way. They're free to do whatever they want. But you know what, neighbor? If you got a different view of how things works, good for you. Let's help build your house. You're always welcome in my home. Way entirely too much religious intolerance. When people don't want something, what do? They quote the Bible. Oh, we just can't have them folks marry. What did the people in the Caribbean and South America and the Portuguese and the Spaniards did? What did they do to justify slave trade? Well, there's talk about slaves in Scripture. All right? How come nobody's yelling and screaming about when they wanted to give no rights to women and no jury trials to women? Again, they quoted something in Scripture where you could stone to death women that were adulterers. Guys, that was okay. Women pretty much wasn't. So I don't see anybody talking about execution when people are eating shrimp and lobster. Or hey, here's a big deal. How many of you have two different fabrics on at the same time right now? That'll send you to hell. So whatever they want to believe, fine. But why are you telling other people what to believe? So I'll finish just by saying this. I try to finish this way. I'm in a business where I'm telling people, don't judge my person on the suit of their clothes, or how much money is in their pocket, or who they worship, or how they worship, or their gender, or their preferences, or anything else. I'm just trying to say something that just treat everybody the same. Well, here's another way of putting it. Two people are charged with robbing the drugstore. One person from Duluth, mom and dad work here, they coach it up, grandma's in women's club, grandpa's in the Rotary, the Kiwanis, the Freethinkers, everything else, writes huge checks. The other kid's got the same history, same lack of a criminal history, whatever it is, same crime, same everything. And he's from the south side of Chicago. And he walked out of Marshall High or Westinghouse High. And his mom came up here and he has no idea who his father is. And she's on her hands and knees scrubbing the toilet of the Selwood, Lonsdale, Allworth, and Medical Arts building all night long. So, should they get treated the same? Are they treated the same? So, thanks so much for your morning.